All right, hello class. Welcome to week 8, and this is basically the halfway point for our semester. So congratulations on making it through the first part of what is kind of a weird online 30-10 class, and getting up to speed and staying on task. Everything from now on will pretty much build on what you've done before. So a lot of that early hard work is done, and now it's time to start to develop some of that work in order to see it kind of come to fruition. So good job on that. Okay, so today what I want to do is I want to talk about obviously what we're going to be doing in week 8, but I want to spend a lot of time talking about that Project 3B now that you've had a chance to look over the assignment description, to watch that video that I posted in week 7. If you didn't watch that video, you should, just to get a sense of it. And let me just real quick show you so there's no hunting and pecking around for it. So the link for it is right here. Okay, so take a look at that video if you haven't already. And that'll kind of explain the kind of idea behind Project 3B. And I want to talk about that kind of at length here in a minute, but let's just kind of cover our weekly task first. So what we're going to be doing this week is we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 7 from our writing guide. And so this is going to be kind of focused on using sources responsibly and ethically. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful of when you're using research is that you're giving credit where credit is due, because obviously you don't want to run into issues of plagiarism. It's really easy for students to kind of accidentally plagiarize by, not citing things for one reason or another, or for paraphrasing and then forgetting to cite that paraphrase, right? So like anytime you're using someone else's ideas, you need to give credit for that. And because all of your assignments kind of come through SafeAssign, it's really easy for me to see if there's any kind of plagiarism going on. And so I can help you steer kind of away from that. And it's also easy for me to see if this is something like an intentional plagiarism, right? If you just copied and pasted a whole essay, or if it's something like, I forgot to cite that or whatever. So, and so Chapter 7 will really help you kind of work through that. The real work that we're going to be doing for this week, though, is we're going to start to actually write your literature review, write your 3A. Now, if you remember from last week's video, Project 3A is focused on synthesizing a variety of sources from your community that are all dealing with the same topic, and showing how those, like each source is coming at this topic from a different angle, right? So you're trying to like outline the conversation. Well, our goal for this week then is going to be to actually start to think about what an introduction for that essay might look like. And the reason that we're doing it in this way is because this is kind of a weird assignment that students don't usually have any kind of experience with. The introduction is where a lot of those things can actually start to make sense as you're working on this. So sorry about that. And so the introduction is going to force you to know your objectives for the essay. So I know a lot of you probably saw in your rough drafts that for Project 2 that I commented something like, okay, this is really good, however, you need to state your objectives for this essay, right? So like to take the introduction and turn it into, something that actually introduces your essay. And so that's going to be our goal for this, is to actually wrap our heads around what it means to write a literature review. Now, what we're going to do this week is we're going to actually go through this Project 3 sample that I have posted up here. Now, this is a really good essay that a student wrote, a really good literature review that a student wrote. And what I'm going to do is in the next day or so, I'm going to post a video walkthrough of this, where I'm working through kind of obviously I'm going to spend some time on the introduction, but working through the essay as a whole, showing you the kind of basic moves that occur in a literature review, show you where those moments of synthesis happen, and to help you kind of better understand what a literature review is, what it looks like, what its objectives are, and things like that. And so I'll be posting that video tonight or tomorrow. And so our goal then is going to be to actually think about what are your objectives for the literature review. Well, there's a couple reasons we're writing this. The first one is to better understand a problem that's kind of addressing your community. The second one is to prepare you to actually enter into the conversation, which will be Project 4's work. You're going to be taking this literature review and using it as evidence in order to make an argument in Project 4. The other thing that we're trying to do is just to show how people in your community are researching, investigating, or discussing a problem, to better understand how those moments of discourse happen. Remember, because we're still thinking about that idea of discourse community, a community based on communication. And so a literature review is going to give us a really good opportunity to think about, okay, what does that discourse actually look like? Right? I understand that it happens in journals and articles and conferences and all that, but when it actually happens, What does it look like? And this is a really good opportunity to understand it, to actually kind of sneak in and listen in on a conversation occurring within your community. And so those are our goals for the literature review. And so what we're going to be doing in your introduction then is introducing your basic goals for the essay, giving your reader a sense of what's to come, and so on and so forth. And so again, what I want you to start to think about is, what are the sources, because you should still be doing that research and looking for sources. Like, what are these sources talking about, and then why are you interested? What are your goals for collecting those? And then we'll kind of address that in the video walkthrough. So besides the introduction, what I want you to start to think about is that other component of Project 3, which is your multimodal presentation. So let me shift gears then away from the kind of introduction for 3A, and let's spend the rest of this video talking about that Project 3B. So just to recap, if we come down here, what Project 3B asks you to do is it asks you to take some of the research that you found so far, your kind of research in progress, wherever you are right now, and to try to talk about it, to present it to a group of your peers, to try to explain some of the research that you found, your reasons for researching this topic, your interest in this topic, and just how you see some of these sources starting to come together. So in other words, it'd be like if you were at like a family dinner, or if you were talking to a group of colleagues, or if you were talking to a group of friends in the hallway, people that are familiar maybe with the community but don't really know what's going on inside of it. And if they asked you about, okay, so what have you found so far? You went to the library, what did you find? It's that kind of mentality that you're just explaining to us some of your research. Now, what I want to stress here is this is not supposed to be a finished product. And I don't mean like the presentation should be finished. I mean like your research shouldn't be finished. This is very much like, hey, I found a couple sources. I know I need 6 or whatever for this essay, but I've only got a couple so far. That's totally fine. The idea is that you're just talking us kind of through your thought process here. It's a very reflective moment where you're just kind of thinking about like, look, this is the topic I picked. This is why I'm interested in this topic. This is kind of what I know about it so far. This is what I found in the library so far. And you're going to be presenting that in kind of a visual manner. Now, in a normal face-to-face class, what would happen is you would make some sort of presentation. You would get up in front of the class and you would talk about it for 5 minutes and explain it to us, because that is the other kind of component of this. It's only supposed to be 5 minutes. That's the Ignite presentation coming in that you guys watched the video of. Just a quick 5-minute presentation. But anyway, you'd get up in front of the class and you'd talk about it and you'd explain it to us and you'd walk us through it. Now, because this is an online class, we don't have that opportunity, obviously. And so what I had students do in the past that I thought was really successful is to use PowerPoint. Now, we're going to take a look at an example here in a second, but let me kind of quickly explain. So what students did is they made a PowerPoint presentation that's just kind of talking the audience, which is me and some of your peer review group members, through your research. And then what I had them do is there is a audio recording feature through PowerPoint where as your slides are playing, you can just kind of talk over them, explaining to your audience what each slide is referring to, or to unpack some of the research that's on the slide, right? So instead of having a whole ton of information on the slide, you might just have some bullet points and you just talk about it. And so students really seem to like that, and that seemed to work really well. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I want to say that if you don't have a microphone to record, I know most laptops do, some computers might not. There are options. I mean, I know you can get a cheap microphone for like $10, but also if you go into the library, into the Writing Center, they have any recording stuff that you might need, and they can set you up with that. So let me know if you have problems, and we can figure something out. And so let's take a look at this example here. So obviously I'm not going to play the audio for you because this is a student's presentation, and I wouldn't feel comfortable playing, her voice in a different class that she was not a part of. But I'll kind of explain as we go through it. And so all that's happening here is this is a presentation obviously on the nursing community. And so as you'll see here, we've got kind of the initial research ideas coming through, right? So why be a nurse, and some just kind of background information. Then as she was kind of talking through the slide, she was giving us some background information on why she wanted to become a nurse. And so this is kind of like the why are you interested topic. just kind of her basic interest in nursing. And so then we start to get into some of her research questions with more some like the problems of nursing. And so as you can see here, there's really no research on here, but she's talking us through this in the audio. She's talking to us about some of the problems, financial, social, whatever, problems with nursing. And so we get kind of like this context here, these kind of like interesting questions or these kind of eye-catching, visuals or whatever, as she's talking to us about like her interest in her research. And so then, boom, we get to like her final, like her initial research question. So, is there a nursing shortage, or is there a shortage of nurses, and what could that mean for the future of healthcare? And so, as you can see, all she's done so far is talk to us about her interest in the field, talk to us about some of the problems that she's noticed, and then she's come at us with her research question. And these are the questions that you guys developed in your blogs, like the question that's going to kind of be guiding your kind of investigations into the library. And so once she gives us this question, she gives us this source, and here she's talking to us about what this source is. And so this is the first source she found in her research, and it was just talking about like nursing and like the shortages and things like that. It's just kind of explaining to us basically what the source is talking about. And again, continuing with some kind of like nursing explanations and things like that to the ways that some of her sources were talking about solving these problems, bringing in another source talking about this person's angle on it. And so on and so forth. And so then, again, all she's giving us is some kind of information on nursing, why she's interested, what her research has said so far, and then just kind of talked us through her experience doing this research or what she finds interesting as she does this. Now that was a really good example of what this kind of presentation should look like. Again, one of the things that I want to stress here is that it wasn't like this complete research papery, right? Everything fleshed out research and information all over the place. It was very much just a discussion of her research with this kind of contextual visual aid, right? So that's what I want you to think about is like as you're making this, you're going to want to think about like if you're explaining this to someone, if you're presenting this to someone outside of the field, then you're going to want to do it in terms that are accessible. And so you're going to be talking through your research, but then the content that you put on the slides can be, either facts from your research, charts and graphs that you find interesting, pictures that kind of address the context, right? So you saw some like funny cartoons from time to time, those kind of ridiculous stock images, whatever it is. Like it doesn't have to be this kind of pre-packaged research. I'm going to go present this to, whoever. This should be very much kind of like an informal work in progress. Now, what I want you guys to start to do is to start to think about some of the sources that you found so far. And I want you to start to put those together into that kind of PowerPoint. Oh, and just real quick, let me just see this real quick. It should be slideshow. Oops. I think it's in the slideshow, like use narrations or something, but you can record it. It's like right from the menu, just real quick. And so that's what I want you to start to do is to start to think about what sources you're going to want to talk about, what you're going to want to say. And so the things that you should be focused on are, what is your topic? Why are you interested? What did you know so far? What have you found? And what has your experience been like doing this kind of research? And you can see here, all we're talking about is 5 minutes. So we're talking about like 20 slides that are up for maybe 15 seconds each. So it's not really that big a deal. At the very end, you should have one slide with all of your citations for any research that you use and things like that. Okay, so what I want you to think about as you're kind of starting to put these things together is that this is not meant to be like extra work on top of writing a literature review. It's supposed to be an opportunity for you to actually put a couple sources, 2 or 3 sources into conversation to talk about multiple sources at the same time and how they're all kind of revolving around the same topic. Because that is exactly what you're going to be doing in your literature review. You're going to be talking about like 6 or 7 sources at the same time, about how they're all coming at the same topic. And so this kind of multimodal presentation is really good practice to do that. It's good practice to say like, look, here's 2 sources that I really like. These are my launch texts even. They got me going. And here's what they're saying. Here's how they're kind of coming at this from different angles. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing in your Project 3A. So it's good practice. Okay, so just to review, what I want you guys to be doing for the week is make sure you're doing your reading. start to draft your introduction and start to think about what you might want to say, your goals, and start to think about that video and look out for the walkthrough for the sample tomorrow. All right, guys, bye.